Sup gamers, welcome back to some more regularly scheduled Dead by Daylight content, and today, well, is a bit of a different one. It's not going to be a gameplay commentary, but more of an opinion piece or just a general commentary about playing Survivor. Now, I know that it really doesn't mean all that much, but I figured I'd get out ahead of the curve and talk about why the videos that I'm making right now are definitely more centered around the killer side of Dead by Daylight, and why I don't tend to go into playing the Survivor side quite as much. Of course, I had to record all this audio separate from the gameplay because if any of you have watched any of my previous commentaries, you know that I have a tendency to get distracted really easily, and there are some points that I want to make that will get distracted from if I'm actually trying to talk about them in depth while I'm actually inside of a game of Dead by Daylight. And so the first problem that I have with playing Survivor over playing Killer is that playing Survivor well is pretty reliant on your team also doing well. And I'm sure that I could find a group of people to play Dead by Daylight with consistently, but I think that there's a certain expectation when you join a group of survivors that you have to play optimally, you have to have a lot of the things unlocked already, and it then becomes this more competitive almost environment. And for my own sake, I know that I'm not a good player. I know that I'm not good at Survivor. I know that I'm not good at Killer, really, even. Like, I'm not that great at this game, and I don't want to go into playing Survivor again, even though I did that for like the first 90 hours that I played this game. I don't want to go back into that with a group of people because I think that the expectations might be a lot higher than I am able to reach. And on the other side of things, if I do play solo queue, I know that there's paradoxically a non-zero chance, in fact a very high chance, that I will be getting a lot of really poor teammates. So let's say that I somehow managed to loop the killer really well on the game. I'm on the basement, the lower floor, and I'm going around and I'm dropping all these pallets properly, and I'm playing all the loops correctly, and I'm really looping the killer around. But none of my team recognizes this. They don't go for gens, they go for totems, they're unlocking chests, doing all these things that aren't part of winning the game. Then that feels bad for me because I'm trying to give them the best advantage. I'm trying to play to what I expect other people expect me to play up to. And so that kind of dissonance of expectations of not knowing how well I'm supposed to play as a survivor versus what my teammates are going to do and what perks my teammates have and everything makes that really difficult. And I did play some Survivor games recently, actually, with a friend of mine because, we wanted to play a game together. Oh, we had Dead by Daylight, we can play on the Survivor side. He was a Survivor player back in like 2018, has some 400 hours or so in the game. So not a lot, admittedly, but still enough to understand the basic mechanics of the game overall. And there was this one game in particular where I was playing a build that relied on me getting unhooks and healing people. It was Sprint Burst, Second Wind, We'll Make It, and one other perk that I can't fully remember. It might have been Deja Vu. No, it was Kindred. Kindred was my last perk on there. And that was very much focused around going for the unhooks. But then when I wanted to go for the unhook and go for the heal to get my second wind, I had another teammate who was injured, who didn't have a good unhooking build, who didn't have the We'll Make It buff, go and unhook that survivor, and then they got downed immediately and like traded a 1-for-1. And there's just like little minutia like that, that on one hand, sometimes I am playing to play really well, and the teammates around me aren't that great. But then sometimes if I go into a team, I think that they might have higher expectations than what I can reach as a survivor myself. And so if I want to play Survivor, if I'm goofing around, it's not going to work out because I don't know the way that my teammates are going to play. But if I'm playing in a Survive with Friends group, I don't know how competitive we're supposed to be. I don't know the level of expectations there. And that, I feel like I might actually be worse in that kind of scenario. And just kind of in general, I've grown really tired of playing team games. I used to play a lot of League of Legends. I still play it to some extent to this day, but I used to play a lot of League of Legends. I used to play a decent amount of Valorant as well. And in Valorant, sometimes the frustration that I have is like, well, I'm playing an initiator, so I need to be able to flash our team onto site or get intel so that we know where our opponents are, and I need our controller to be putting smokes in the places that cut off the site properly and everything. I'm talking like in terms of playing competitive Valorant, right? And our controller's like off fighting somebody in mid or off on another site entirely and doesn't have our smokes down, and so we don't have our entry into site, and then we get knocked down anyway. And it's like, I need to be able to communicate to my teammate that we need these smokes in these locations, but at the same time, I don't have that level of communication with those people, and I don't know how to communicate that properly in a team game. And I sure, like, I could use voice chat, and I could say to the person, like, hey, can you smoke off these locations instead of fucking around on the other site? And that will probably come off as too aggressive, and people just get so sensitive over the internet over those little things nowadays, and it's just not worth my time to try and babysit the personalities of people who just stay at home and do nothing in their 20s. I also tend to typically dislike playing Survivor because of how there's a low variance in gameplay. Now, I know that the way that the game is played changes depending on the map, depending on the killer that you're facing, but as far as like the actual fundamentals go, you know, that doesn't change. You might say that doesn't change for Killer either. Like, Killer, you play a lot of the same perks. I've seen your Prestige 3 videos. They are a lot of the same perks. They are a lot of the same things where you're going around and you're trying to mind game people at tiles, and you're trying to make sure that generators aren't completed and everything. But for Survivor, it's you do gens or you're getting chased, and sometimes you get a heal. And that kind of, there's not like, oh, today I'm playing Nemesis and I have to make sure that I'm getting tentacle strikes off, and I have to, okay, well, the survivors are over on this side of the map now, and so I have to adjust my positioning here, and I have to play around this 3-gen and organize myself around the map and have that level of strategy involved. Whereas with Survivors, it doesn't seem like it's quite nearly as involved, and doesn't seem like every game is a new game. It feels more like every game is just the same game again with a little bit of flavor put on top, like a little bit of like a little window dressing. I was gonna say like carpeting or window dressing on top of that. And that's ultimately another thing that drives me away from playing Survivor is with these killer videos that I'm putting out, you know, Prestige 3X, it's like, oh, I'm learning a skill, I'm learning how to play Huntress better, I'm learning how to play Xenomorph better. But with Survivors, if I say like, oh, I'm getting Prestige 3 Adam, which is, you know, the next Survivor that I have been leveling up the most. If I say Prestige 3 Adam, what difference is Prestige 3 Adam versus getting, I don't know, Prestige 3 on Yui or on Gabriel or any other of the Survivors that I currently possess? And finally, I feel like even though Survivors can drag the killer out by taking them to certain loops, by making them focus on specific generators and pulling their attention away from survivors that are on hooks and injured and everything like that, I feel that Survivors have very little control over a match. So if I'm working on a generator, oh, that generator might be stopped by the active decision on the killer side for them to be playing Pain Res, for them to be playing Pop Goes the Weasel, for them to be playing Corrupt Intervention and everything. That kind of variance is very much in the killer's hands, on the killer's side. But for the Survivor, it's like, all right, in this game, again, this is something that, you know, goes back to the low variance of gameplay. In this game, the control that I have over the match is the fact that the killer kind of looped me on this loop for 30 seconds or so, but then they went off because they know that my teammates are working on other parts of the map. And so it just doesn't feel quite as rewarding. It doesn't feel quite as interesting to me. I definitely understand that I'm wrong here. Like, I understand there's something a lot more for me to learn because I haven't played a lot of Survivor and stuff, but that has been generally what has kept me away from playing it the most. So if you disagree with me, and you would like to tell me like things that Survivors can do, things that Survivors can do to adjust that team reliance, to adjust that low variance in gameplay, to adjust that little control over a match that I have, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, because I know there's a lot for me to learn in this game, but that is my general consensus as to why I don't play Survivor nearly as much as Killer. So thank you so much for listening. Take care and goodbye.